You know, sometimes you think you've seen it all, and then life throws you a curveball that's so bizarre, you can't help but just tell everyone. This story is one of those. It's about the time my quiet country life was interrupted by a self-entitled stranger who thought my property was her personal grocery store. It all started on a perfectly normal Tuesday afternoon. I was out back, enjoying the peace and quiet, just doing some work on my porch. I've lived out here for years, and one of the things I cherish most is the privacy. My nearest neighbor is a good half-mile away, so you can imagine my surprise when I heard a strange noise coming from the direction of my old root cellar. It was a kind of scraping, followed by a faint rustling. At first I brushed it off, probably just a raccoon or a groundhog trying to be clever. They get into everything, but the sound persisted, and it started to sound less like a small animal and more human. My curiosity got the better of me. I got up from my chair and decided to investigate. My root cellar is one of the oldest parts of my property. It's built into a small hill, with a heavy, thick wooden door. It's where I keep my preserved goods, a lot of canned vegetables from my garden, some cured meats, and a decent collection of homemade wine. It's my little treasure trove, something I'm genuinely proud of. As I got closer, my heart started to pound a little faster. The heavy bar that I always keep latched across the door was swung to the side. The padlock was gone, not broken, just gone. Someone had clearly picked it. Now I knew this wasn't an animal. I crept up to the heavy door, which was slightly ajar. The rustling sound was much clearer now. It was the sound of jars clinking together, of someone rummaging through boxes. I could even hear faint muttering. My blood ran cold for a second. Who in the world would be in my cellar? I took a deep breath, pushed the door open just enough to peek inside, and what I saw just about made my jaw hit the floor. There was a woman in there, probably in her late 40s or early 50s, with that signature haircut that just screams, "I'd like to speak to the manager." She had a tote bag and was literally going through my shelves, picking up jars, reading the labels and putting some of them into her bag. My canned peaches. She was trying to steal my prize-winning canned peaches. I stood there for a second, just completely stunned by the audacity. I cleared my throat, loud enough to be heard over her rummaging. "Excuse me," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Can I help you?" She jumped, startled, and spun around. The look on her face wasn't fear or shame, as you might expect from someone caught red-handed. It was an annoyance, pure, unfiltered irritation, as if I was the one interrupting her. "Oh, finally," she huffed, putting a hand on her hip. I was wondering when the owner would show up. Some of these shelves are a bit high for me to reach. I was speechless. "The owner? I'm the owner. What are you doing in my cellar?" She rolled her eyes, a full dramatic eye roll. "Well, it's about time. I saw this place from the road and figured it must be one of those community pantries. You know, for people to share their excess produce. It's a lovely idea, but you really should have a clearer sign. Community pantry. My private, locked root cellar on my private property, a half-mile from any public road." I felt a wave of anger wash over me, but I also saw the sheer absurdity of the situation. This woman wasn't just a thief. She was living in her own little reality where everything belonged to her. "Ma'am," I said, my voice getting firmer, "this is not a community pantry. This is my private property. You are trespassing, and you are stealing my food." She scoffed, actually scoffed at me. "Don't be so dramatic. I'm not stealing. It's called sharing. People with this much," she gestured around at my supplies, "have a responsibility to share with those who are less fortunate. It's the decent thing to do. I was just going to take a few things for a dinner party I'm having." A dinner party? She was robbing me to host a dinner party. The level of entitlement was astronomical. I knew right then that arguing with her would be pointless. It would be like trying to explain color to someone who can only see in shades of entitlement. Trying to reason with this level of Karen is a losing game. So, a different idea popped into my head. A much, much better idea. I gave her my most accommodating smile. "You know what? You're absolutely right. How silly of me, my apologies. Let me just check something on the door here. Make sure it's working properly for the UR community." Her face brightened instantly. "See, I knew you'd understand. Some people are just so selfish these days." I stepped back out of the cellar entrance, keeping my smile locked in place. "Oh, absolutely. Can't have that." And with one swift, decisive motion, I swung the heavy wooden door shut. The thump it made as it closed was incredibly satisfying. I immediately dropped the heavy iron bar back into its brackets across the door. It was an old, sturdy mechanism. There was no way she was getting that open from the inside. For a second there was silence. Then, a confused "Hello, what are you doing?" came from inside. Then the banging started. Softly at first, then harder and harder. Muffled screams and a string of angry demands echoed from behind the thick wood. "Let me out. What is the meaning of this? I'll sue you. Open this door right now." I just stood there for a moment, listening. The sounds of her rage were like music to my ears. Justice, in its purest, most primitive form. I calmly walked back to my porch, sat down in my chair, and picked up my phone. I dialed 911. "Yes, hello," I said, as calmly as if I were ordering a pizza. "I'd like to report a trespasser." "Yes, I have them contained." "Where?" "Oh, she's currently secured in my root cellar. The dispatcher was silent for a beat, probably trying to process what I just said. After I explained the situation, they assured me officers were on their way, so I waited. For about 15 minutes, I sat on my porch sipping a glass of iced tea while the banging and screaming from the cellar continued. It was a symphony of entitled fury. At one point, I think she was trying to throw my jars of pickles at the door. I just hoped she wasn't breaking the good ones. Finally, I saw the flashing lights coming up my long driveway. 2 police cars pulled up. 2 officers got out looking a little confused. I waved from my porch. "She's in there," I said, pointing towards the cellar. The muffled shouting was still audible. One of the officers looked at me, then at the cellar door, and then back at me. I think he was trying not to laugh. "You locked her in your root cellar. She was stealing my peaches," I replied with a shrug. Seemed like the most direct solution. They approached the door cautiously. "Ma'am, this is the police. We're going to open the door. Please step back." The screaming inside was replaced with a triumphant, "It's about time. Arrest this man. He kidnapped me." The officers shared a look, then lifted the heavy bar. They swung the door open, and there she was, standing amidst a few broken jars of beets, looking disheveled and absolutely furious. Her tote bag was still half full of my preserves. When she saw the uniforms, she immediately launched into her tirade. "Officers, thank goodness this lunatic locked me in here. I was just gathering some items from the community pantry and he trapped me. It's assault. It's kidnapping." The officers listened patiently. Then one of them pointed to the half-full tote bag. "Ma'am, is that your bag?" "Yes, he was trying to steal it from me." The officer looked at me. I just shook my head. He then turned back to her. "Ma'am, this is private property. The owner says you were taking his belongings without permission. Is that true? It's not stealing, it's sharing. He has so much," she shrieked. That was all they needed to hear. One of the officers sighed and pulled out a pair of handcuffs. The look of utter shock and disbelief on her face as they clicked the cuffs onto her wrists was priceless. It was a look that said, "But the rules don't apply to me." They escorted her out of my cellar, still protesting her innocence and threatening to sue everyone in sight. As they put her in the back of the patrol car, one of the officers came back over to me. "So," he said, trying to maintain a professional demeanor, "you have a pretty effective security system." I just smiled. "It's old-fashioned, but it works." They took my statement, collected the bag of my canned goods as evidence, and drove away, leaving me in the peaceful quiet of my own property once again. I went back to the cellar, cleaned up the mess of broken beet jars, and found my prize-winning peaches, thankfully untouched. I put a new, even bigger padlock on the door. Sometimes, justice isn't complicated. Sometimes, it's just a heavy door and a little bit of patience. And let me tell you, my iced tea never tasted so good. Thanks for listening to my crazy story. If you enjoyed it, make sure to like and subscribe for more. You never know what will happen next.